Welcome to the FDC Group podcast. My name is Michelle Crowley and I'm delighted to be joined today by Karina McAuliffe. Welcome, Karina.
Thank you, Michelle.
Karina, we'll start by a quick introduction to yourself, touching on your academic and your professional and personal background.
Sure. So I suppose my degree was here in Cork in UCC. Started out with a food business degree. I suppose when I left school, was unsure as to what career trajectory I wanted to be heading towards. So picked food business as a degree to give me a broad range of experience and to establish where I wanted to go. Came out of UCC with the degree, still uncertain, I won't lie. So I went off travelling for 2 years. And whilst on my travels, I suppose the accountancy was always there in the background. And on my return, tore straight into studying the professional exams with ACCA when I returned from travelling. Yeah,
that passion for accounting stayed with you.
Well, I suppose I always had the love of it in school. It was just unfortunate, maybe, that the career guidance at the time wasn't the best. And look, that's no blame to anyone. At the end of the day, you must forge your own path and create your own career. And I will say the food business degree gave me a good broad range, a good understanding of where I've ended up now in terms of the industry that I'm now working with, and it helped me to make my ultimate decisions, because accountancy was one of the subjects that we did study as well. Yeah,
great. So, in terms of your current role, Karina, sure. Talk me through the functions and responsibilities you have with the FDC Group.
I suppose with FDC, look, the history is I'm with FDC over 23 years. I was very fortunate to start as a trainee accountant many moons ago. And my career trajectory has allowed me, to progress, within the organisation as I have wanted to do so. And I suppose, look, that's one of the positive things that I find working within FDC. Started as a trainee, was supported in terms of achieving my professional qualification in the accountancy profession. Went on then and became a tax consultant as well, so supported in that. And I suppose after that, you forge your own, career here as you want it to be. Became the area manager in the Cork office for a significant number of years. And about 7 or 8 years ago, there was a decision making internally that we wanted to create more of a geographical spread of where we were in Ireland. Took on that remit and moved myself to Galway to take on our expansion into the west of Ireland. So I suppose my role is quite varied. I'm an accountant, I'm a tax consultant, I'm a manager, and you're trying to support your staff and build and expand the group into the west of Ireland. So
a Cork woman in Galway.
Yeah, very unusual, by the way, and they tell me that a lot up there. They reckon that there isn't too many Cork people in Galway, and my accent stands out. So yeah,
very good. When you came to work with FDC, why FDC initially?
That was a funny one, actually. There was a colleague of mine in my degree. He was working, he's well gone out of FDC now, but he was working with Barry in Cork and FDC at the time. And I suppose when I came back from my travels, I was looking for a trainee accountancy role. I wanted to do practice. I suppose practice to me is dealing with people. Practice is dealing with clients. Practice is dealing with businesses. I didn't have the appetite to be dealing with industry. That was just me personally. I wanted to be doing something of value with people. So I looked at trainee accountancy roles. I suppose, look, it was the early thousands. There wasn't a load of them around. The ad came up for FDC, and thankfully knew of FDC through my colleague in college, and he put in a good word for me, so that helped.
Great.
It did.
It's always a help.
It did. Yeah, I won't lie, he did. To the extent I was the only one interviewed, so then I was the only one hired. Brilliant. So that was easy.
You saw off the competition.
Yes.
So you've seen big changes in FDC in the 23 years.
Oh, I have. When I would have started so I started in head office in Wellington Road. The team of what is the region, that I was working in that office at that stage would have had 3 of us. Just 3 of us. That's all it was. And when I left Cork 7 years ago, there was close to 30 people in that team, So like that growth has been phenomenal. And that's purely down to, the opportunity that we're being given, whether it is mergers, acquisitions, organic growth. a good sense of our work is from, organic growth and referrals. And I suppose there's a satisfaction out of seeing that growth happening for us, yeah.
Which fits in with your advisory with integrity, which is really important, isn't it, in terms of growth and the trajectory?
Oh, absolutely. Like integrity is at the core of everything we do, whether it is integrity dealing with our peers or integrity dealing with our clients. I think we all have to be honest with ourselves, but we need to be honest with our clients. Clients come to us as accountants, but we also see ourselves as more than accountants. We see ourselves as their advisors. So for me, when I get to meet a new client, the first thing I need to do is I need to understand the client. I need to understand their family dynamic. I need to understand their business. It's predominantly in the agri space, or in rural Ireland we're dealing with. But every family dynamic is different. I always say to someone when they come in and they're talking about the farm down the road, like there's no two yards the same, there's no two farms the same. You have to be careful about looking over that ditch and comparing yourself. So for me, from an advisory point of view, whether it is financial, whether it is banking, whether it is taxation, or whether it is just general discussions with regards to the evolution of their business, it is important to understand them, and I suppose, to understand what they do and be their trusted advisor in the core of what we are doing. And I suppose it has stood to us, Michelle, because we build trusts with the clients, to the extent that I'm gone from the Cork office, but I still travel to Cork to meet clients, because you build a rapport with people, you build relationships, and when you have those relationships, there's a trust, and when that trust is there, it's easy to support them and support their businesses then as well.
That's a really good customer-centric approach,
yeah,
in terms of bespoke. I'm sure there are times, particularly in taxation, when there's some difficult conversations.
There is, and just in general business, it is, you have times where you have to be honest, and I think that's back to your integrity. It might be not what the client wants to hear, and you need to have the hard yard conversation with them, whether it is, getting out of a business in particular, or maybe changing what they're doing or changing the routes. And at the end of the day, you have emotions involved, and you have to respect that too when you're dealing with the clients. But I think it's how you approach it, and you respect them and the place they're coming from, and you try to be fair. But we have a responsibility, we have a responsibility to advise them in whatever direction we see fit, positive or negative. And I think the one thing I will say is as advisors, because I keep saying we're advisors more than just accountants or tax consultants, we're that too. We are both. But at the end of the day, it's about taking that tax, taking that accountancy, interpreting it and applying it to their scenario. And by doing so, you'll give them the best advice for their business going forward. And I think for anyone who has an appetite for being in advisory, like the scope is wide. It really is, so it's you're dealing with a person, you're dealing with real life, and you get good satisfaction out of, achieving success with people in their businesses, because you've taken it on nearly as a personal project that you want it to be successful, you want them to achieve, and you want them to be good at what they're doing as well, and you feel as an integral part of that.
And Karina, is that your main motivation to work as hard as you do?
I suppose definitely the client satisfaction piece is a big part of it. And seeing the clients being happy and seeing their businesses being successful, Don't get me wrong, now there's rough days as well, and busy days, and, we've a lot of deadlines in this industry, so it can be challenging in that sense. But, seeing the clients and their businesses being successful and seeing them being content in what they're doing, it does give you a sense of satisfaction, And I suppose giving opportunity then to internal staff as well, I suppose. I talk about coming out of Cork 7 years ago. I went up, and the first office in Athenry was a greenfield site. So we had no staff. We literally started, we talked to the farmers about going out and putting up, milking parlours and greenfield sites. We had a greenfield site in Athenry. And now 7 years later, in our newest region, which we call the baby region of the group, we've 3 offices, we have 20-something staff, and, there's opportunities. And as we're hiring, people can see the opportunities, and they see the growth, and they see the opportunity for them to be sitting in front of clients and embracing that, that's what that's the dynamic for them that's available as well, which is great to see, So, you're driven to keep the client satisfied, but you're also driven to give your staff the opportunity to do the same as well, if that's what they'd like to do,
You appear very passionate to me about your job, and as a leader, of course, that filters down through with the waterfall effect. Is it fair to say you haven't lost sight of your core business despite the expansion?
Oh, no. And I think, you see, we have, albeit that the organisation has grown significantly in the 20 odd years that I have been with it, I still feel, it's still a very small family orientated, group. People are very committed to the same goals. So everybody is on the one page in terms of where we want to achieve. And I think, as long as, it is important within the organisation to be corporate at a level, but at the same time, we're dealing with people on the ground. We're dealing with businesses, we're dealing with real lives. And we have to appreciate that too in every day, in every aspect of what we do, So I think it's important to always continue to focus on that in terms of helping businesses. And there's no doubting, the farming community at the moment, particularly the dairying community, there's a lot of flux, and I won't lie, I'm meeting a bit of negativity at the moment because they're after coming in off a difficult spring and there's not a whole lot of positivity, but it's still just trying to work through that with them. We've had years of bad milk price, we've had years of good milk price, and we've had years of big taxes and low taxes, and you just try to work through it with them. So I think it's just you flow and ebb, as the years go on, and some years are harder than others,
but this year has certainly been a challenging one, but
it has.
It's a great year to build trust as well and advise people to trade out of it, which is very important. You spoke about being involved in tax and accountancy and a manager and an advisor. And in terms of the advisory role, what would be the three most important aspects of that?
I suppose trust is definitely the biggest thing, because I think, I would have even found that myself a little bit more challenging initially when I would have moved to the west of Ireland. I suppose when I was here in Cork for a good number of years, I had a client base. I had my clients that I knew for a long time and they trusted me. So when I moved, I was building a whole new client base. So there was an element of establishing that trust. But once that trust gets established, it's, and people trust you and trust your opinions and trust that you have integrity in what you're saying and in what you're doing, and that you're always focusing on them and their business. I think, that's taken on board and it helps move it forward. I suppose, I don't know really what else would there. I find that trust piece is the biggest thing with the clients, once you can build that trust. And I suppose you see a lot of the professional part is taken for granted. There's an expectation you can do accounts, you can do tax, you understand all of that. So it's about taking that then and interpreting it to the specific businesses or the specific clients that you're meeting and whatever scenarios that they have in front of them,
It's certainly a very important fundamental to have is trust.
It is. It really is, in what we do. And as trust builds and people become confident in each other, one of the first things I always do when I meet a new client is I just tell them, you need to tell me about you, your business, your family, your situation, because you can't advise you can't advise and if you want to hold integrity in everything in what you're doing, you have to be able to understand, so you have to listen. Listening is equally as important as the talking. It is important to take that time to listen, and that gives us the opportunity then to advise as well.
Yeah, but you have a 360 view of what's going on with that particular account and you can advise accordingly then.
Yeah. It's particularly because I suppose when you pick up a set of accounts and if you're reviewing it, like I often say to my trainees, the paper will never refuse ink, so it'll take whatever the figures are, but it's about interpreting them, and say, what are they saying? Tell me what it's saying to me. What are these accounts saying? Is it good? Is it bad? Where are they at? What's happening? What are the variances? So look, I suppose accountants and tax consultants have a role as part of I often say is, teams are like wheels, and we're just one of the spokes on that wheel that is helping that business to roll through, its various evolutions. So, yeah. And hopefully we'd like to think we're an integral part of it. But
You made the big move to Galway from Cork.
Yes.
And just talk me through geographically the FDC Group, where these offices are? There's nearly 50 offices now, is that correct?
So we're heading close to 50. So I suppose, look, head office is obviously based in Cork City, and for a long number of years the growth and opportunity was very much Munster based, and due to various reasons and interactions at various conferences and stuff, we were, and to this day we still are seeing, that there are opportunities for us in other parts of the country north of even where we are, and I suppose what we do is because we can specialise particularly with the agri sector. It's funny the amount of dairy farmers that might even come in and say, my accountant is great at doing accounts, but they don't know the difference between a cow and a heifer. They don't, they just don't get the industry. And if they're talking about, looking to borrow $1 million to buy land beside them, and it's really going to push them over a very high level of debt per cow, you have to understand that, but you have to support them that that's the right thing for their business going forward, and understand the industry and where the industry is going as well. So we, as I said, we started in Munster. A lot of our offices are in Munster. Went up to the west of Ireland, and I won't lie, it was a challenge because I suppose I came from a comfort zone where, all the professionals that you would interact with, the banking professionals, the solicitors, everybody knew who FDC were. You go to the west of Ireland and it's, what? Yeah, and to this day it still is a little bit, but, so we had to start on the ground, literally had to introduce ourselves to the local professionals, build relationships with the banking community there. And that has evolved over the time, and it is ever evolving. I won't lie, it is ever evolving. We have 2 offices now in Galway, one in Athenry and one just outside Ballinasloe in a place called Kiltormer, and we've one in Claremorris in South Mayo. And we're very fortunate that even we're becoming more known to the extent, like I have clients coming from Cavan, from Sligo, and they are coming, down to the Mayo and Roscommon across into the East Galway office. So it is, so we're happy with it. I think there's a geographical requirement to keep going. As I said to the general manager, I'm not going as far as Donegal.
Yeah, this is far up
this
west
is far up
going.
as I'm going now. But it is great to have the opportunity, and it's great to see that, the service that we provide, which is a little bit more unique than just the typical compliance piece, that there is a requirement for it, and that people are searching for it as well, Yeah.
And in terms of talent pool then, when you open offices in the Western Seaboard, bringing people that maybe couldn't afford to buy a house in Dublin or some of the urban centres, how have you found that in terms of attracting and retaining talent?
I suppose now I've been fortunate in that sense. I suppose we had COVID in the middle, which probably brought its own challenges. But I think, I'm being well supported by head office in terms of both the marketing and the careers development departments. We're putting FDC out there. I think people are becoming, more familiar with us. We're going into the colleges and we're making ourselves known. I spoke there at the Athlone IT at the start of this year, and that, those are the environments where we need to put ourselves and let people know who we are. A lot of people, want to stay agri when they're from rural Ireland. They want to stay working in rural Ireland, and they also want to support rural Ireland, because many of them come from self-employed or family self-employed background, so they understand it as well. But I think not everybody wants to go to Dublin. A lot of people are happy to stay local, and it has given us a great opportunity. We are definitely after hiring, a good number of qualified. I have a good number of qualified that we've hired that are on board and are very happy. And I think if you look at our staffing profile, you'll see that we have a lot of what I call old timers. We tend to stay, when we get through the door, and that's a good sign. It's the opportunity is there to progress as you want within your career. So I think it's up to yourself, to take on that progression if that's what you wish. If advisory is what you want, it's there. For others, they prefer the doing, so that's okay too. They stay within the doing part of it. So again, it's back to my wheel analysis. We're all part of it and having to get done. But to answer your question, I am very fortunate that we are picking up, staff quite readily in the west of Ireland, and they're all local and they all want to stay local. So it is, there is an advantage to that.
Yeah.
But I think we have that in general anyway across the group, because it's, because every office is away from bar, Limerick and Cork City, or they're away from the big cities. people are finding economically and everything that it's easier to stay local. And, if someone has an interest in sport, or if they have an interest in outside activities where, they want to be at home, it allows them to continue that as well.
It facilitates that, absolutely. So there's that saying that pandemics fast forward history. So you have the hybrid working model as well as being able to move to the West. So you facilitate both, do you?
We do. No, funnily enough, I have no one actually working from home. Now, we can facilitate it absolutely for people. But in general, I suppose what we do is for people who are in a training role, and you see, we bring trainee accountants through, the programme. So they start out of college. And I suppose, when they come through, I always say to them, you have 3 years now to become qualified if you pass all your exams. And we're here to support them to do that training. So the more hands-on they are, and really if it's in the office, the more opportunity they'll get and the more learnings that they'll have themselves, because we can support them at a level, but it's a bit more challenging when they're at home, because it's it's more difficult to show and to train. So in general, they're much happier being in the office, and I suppose it's more sociable being in the office as well.
Absolutely.
And see, because of the geography, none of them are travelling big distances, so 20 or 30 minutes is just over. 20 or 30 minutes only over the road in the west of Ireland,
yes,
I can tell you.
No big traffic issues.
No.
You referenced earlier on intergenerational clients, and now so you have an intergenerational type of a cross-pollination in the office, which is fantastic to hear, because I think that's really important for new grads, that there's more experienced people advising them and coaching and mentoring them.
Yeah, well, I suppose we want them to build their careers, and I suppose you'd be hoping that when they come into us and they push through the professional qualification, that they would like what they see with ourselves, and that they would stay on and see us as an avenue for progressing their career. Because whilst we're in a growth phase, there's always opportunity. We're not static, so that growth gives opportunity. So you'd be hoping that that people will see what's happening on the ground, and I suppose we're all different, and we can all forge our own career path as to what we want to achieve. And it's just letting people express their own interest and support them then in that journey as they want. So
train and develop accordingly. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of challenges and opportunities, you spoke about the opportunity of growth, and obviously you've been an integral part of that in your 23 years. Talk us through some more opportunities and challenges facing the FDC Group in the future.
Look, I think opportunities are, and it's not to say, but I think our opportunities are huge for us. I referenced Donegal. We have a distance yet to go to get there. There's no doubting. I suppose the profession we're in, the dynamic is changing, and that there would have been a lot of sole practitioners previously. And I think the one advantage of being within a big organisation is that there's the support within the organisation. You don't have to be the expert in everything, but at least you have colleagues in-house that you can pick up the phone to, or that you can email or bring on board, on a project basis if required. So there is that there's a level of comfort as an advisor that you have that there as well. So the sole practitioners probably are you could argue it was a bit like the elder dairy farmer. They don't have a successor. They don't have anybody in line. So they have their bank of clients, and they're looking for homes for them as well. So I suppose that gives us opportunity. And it also creates challenges for us, because, we have to, make sure geographically we're in the right places. We need to make sure that we have our recruitment. But again, there's opportunity for those we recruit. So I think, there's a positive and a negative to everything. So, opportunities definitely is growth. Opportunities is growth. Challenges are obviously just the day-to-day compliance element of what we do, and you're just dealing with compliance. There's no need to expand on that word. I think compliance is a compliance.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that will continue to be a challenge, because I think everybody knows, no matter what industry you're in, that's ever evolving, and it's always becoming more challenging, and more time and resources have to go into that space. But I think the future is bright, in truth. I feel we have a great opportunity, and I suppose being in the West and only being there 7 years, I feel we've a long path to go if we're to catch up with the 50 plus years that some of the other offices have done, and to grow accordingly. But there's nothing negative in the sense of you know, everything is bright. Maybe a few bits of block work, finding buildings is probably the most challenging thing now, to be honest with you. But, you know, staff are there, people are getting to know us, our professional colleagues are getting to know us, and maybe, you know, small things like the industries themselves becoming more challenging is probably going to put a little bit of challenges on us to continue to stay upskilled, you know, with what's happening within the industries. But you could take that as an opportunity too as well.
Great.
Yeah.
For whether it's a new grad or an experienced person thinking about coming to work with FDC, there's certainly you can feel the passion from you all about it and the integrity. Give me another word just to sum up working with the FDC Group.
I think, you know, for someone who feels accountancy is what they would like to do, but they want to do it in a way where, you know, they can build knowledge, you know, understand businesses, and once you have a good customer service base and have compassion, you know, the satisfaction of supporting an SME business in rural Ireland is there's no doubting, there's no comparative, you know, in terms of just at the end of the day feeling that you have achieved something in terms of giving people opportunity to run their lives, run their businesses, because both are integral. And, you know, once that satisfaction is huge, you know, I would be saying to anyone, if advisory is what they would like to do ultimately, you have to have the foundations. It's like anything, you know, you have to have the foundations, but the opportunity is huge, you know, if that's where they would like to see themselves going. And I think, you know, advising has many hats. You know, it can be, you know, just from an accounting point of view, it can be a tax point of view, it can be a business point of view, you know. But what I will say is we do recognise people and their various skill sets, and we try to give them the opportunities that they want and allow them to build on their passions, because the more diverse our own staff base, you know, the better it is for our client base as well.
Absolutely, mutually beneficial.
Absolutely.
Karina McAuliffe, it's been an absolute pleasure. Karina, from the Regional Manager with the FDC Group, great to speak to you today.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you for your time.